Hello, good evening, and welcome to our weekly political program on Lagos television, The Pendulum. I am Ajibola Ojeshola. Tonight on the program, we'll be looking at that declaration of state of emergency, that bold step that Mr. President took yesterday concerning the political crisis in Rivers State. I will be joined on the program tonight by a legal practitioner. He's going to give us his own perspective as regards the step that Mr. President took yesterday. Some have condemned the action of Mr. President, and some are saying that Mr. President, because of the security situation in Rivers State and, of course, the sensitivity of what is involved, that Mr. President actually did the needful. But we get to find out from my guests immediately after this break. We'll be right back. It is still our weekly political program on Lagos television, The Pendulum. I did say before that break that we'll be looking at that declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State by Mr. President yesterday. And we have joining us tonight a legal practitioner, GT Ogunye. It's our pleasure to have you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Okay, you are the one that is learned here. And of course, I've seen different reactions trailing the action of Mr. President of yesterday. Speak to us legally now. Did it err in any way by that singular step that he took yesterday regarding the crisis rocking River State?
Under Section 3, thanks for inviting me. Under Section 305 of the Constitution, the President has the constitutional power to make a proclamation of a state of emergency. Upon making that proclamation of a state of emergency, the President shall ensure that it is published in the Federal Government Gazette and that that Gazette is immediately transmitted to the National Assembly, meaning the two houses of the National Assembly, containing details of the proclamation. Upon receiving the transmission, the National Assembly within the prescribed period of time shall vote on that proclamation and give an approval or reject that proclamation. Thus far, what the President has done, although the President has done more, was to yesterday proclaim a state of emergency. And so, without any hesitation, we answer the question in the affirmative that the President has the power to proclaim a state of emergency, which he has done. Now, was the situation in Rivers State so bad, so terrible, as the security situation in that state got into a point to warrant a declaration of a state of emergency? There may not be a convergence of opinions on this, especially amongst partisans who are lined up across the divide. The people in Rivers State and outside Rivers State, including politicians and political parties, who will condemn the president for being hasty for not, exercising his discretion to proclaim a state of emergency, very well. That the president should have continued to be patient to ensure that the two parties reconcile their conflict or dispute. But there are others who also say that the president has acted rightly, that the president didn't need to wait, particularly when the situation was degenerating. The president could have acted last year, if you ask me, when the governor of the state personally supervised the demolition of the State House of Assembly. But the president didn't act then. Maybe people didn't know the significance of that exercise. A constitutional democracy is a representative government. And the idea of a representative government is destroyed when the first arm of government, the legislature, is destroyed in terms of its infrastructure. Not only that, the governor also declared that the allegedly defecting members of the House of Assembly, who are 27 and who are in the majority, including their speaker, that no longer recognize them as the House because they are defected, that he only recognized 3 persons. And so for over 1.5 years, the governor carried on insisting that 3 persons were his legislators who were passing his budget and doing all sorts of things. And when the president intervened to forge peace amongst the parties, brought them to Abuja to sign a peace accord, the parties went down to Rivers State and resiled from that accord. On that occasion, Nigerians can recall that the president was pillorying for intervening, that he didn't have the legal and constitutional wicket to so intervene, that he had no constitutional role to play. Even when pacifists were saying that no, the president was acting in order, that he didn't want the situation to degenerate, people condemned the president for intervening at all. And so we then got to a situation whereby all these had occurred and the Supreme Court had ruled that what the government did was wrong and all that and all that. And yet the situation remained not only the same, but was fast degenerating because there were now threats being issued that if the members of the House of Assembly were to carry out their constitutional act, regardless of whether they are allied with Nyesom Wike, the federal minister, who was on the one part of the divide or not, they are legislators who have the power to carry out impeachment in case of misconduct. But when they expressed the will to so do, there were threats issued against them and to the state that the state will be rendered ungovernable. So if the president believed that he had gotten to a stage to declare a state of emergency, I don't think that anybody will be able to fault the president for declaring a state of emergency. In any case, the president alone cannot sustain the declaration of a state of emergency. The National Assembly, being the representative of the people, will still vote on the matter. And if they reject that proclamation, that's the end of that proclamation.
Having soberly reflected on and evaluated the political situation in Rivers State, and the governor and deputy governor of Rivers State having failed to make a request to me as president to issue this proclamation as required by Section 305, Paragraph 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March, year 2025.
I was quoting a particular paragraph out of that broadcast of Mr. President yesterday, wherein he said that he evaluated the political situation in Rivers State, and he was hoping that the governor of Rivers State and his deputy will call upon him to issue the proclamation as regards a state of emergency, which will be in line with Section 305, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution. And of course, the governor failed to do that, and Mr. President had to step in. Now I'm referring to the new sole administrator now, who is now in charge of the state. What do you think should be the modus operandi of the sole administrator, and how soon do you think we can have peace in Rivers State?
Two questions. First, let me talk about what is very contentious in the polity right now. The power of the president to declare a state of emergency is not being seriously or hotly contested now. What is being challenged, at least by commentary in the public domain, is being contested that the president's exercise of power regarding removal or suspension of members of the House of Assembly and the governor
And his deputy.
from office for 6 months is being contested. And it's been suggested that the president lacks such a power. Now, the way I react to it is that this has always been the contestation. In 1962, during the Western Regional Crisis, when Chief Samuel Adoka Akintola was suspended during that state of emergency in the West, and Chief Maje Kodungu was made the administrator, that contention was made. But the court sustained that suspension, in spite of the fact that there were legal challenges in the case of Alhaji Dauda Adegbenro versus Balewa and all other cases, Williams and Maje Kodungu in that era. Of course, in Plateau State, Brigadier General MC Ali, now late, and in the Ekiti State that followed, Major General Tuji Oluri, also now late, were respectively appointed as the administrators. And people also complain that, a president will not have such power, that both a state house of assembly and the governor of a state and the president and the National Assembly owe their common existence to the same constitution, and that the constitution does not allow one branch of government or one layer or tier of government at the center to
suspend?
To suspend, a subnational government and all that. Now, it is noteworthy that for all of us who are contending that the president has no such power, the constitution has not said so. What the president has done in that regard is illegal and unconstitutional. For all of us so contending, it's noteworthy that no court of law in Nigeria, as in those three instances that I've cited, declared the appointment of the sole administrator illegal and unconstitutional. Following the Plateau State situation, members of the House of Assembly that were suspended and the Attorney General of the state lodged a case at the Supreme Court in the name of Plateau State to say that what the president then did, President Olusegun, was illegal and unconstitutional. The simple way the Supreme Court dealt with the matter, and that's the case of Plateau State and AG of the Federation, Part 967, reported in 2006, 3 Nigerian Weekly Law Report, Part 967, page 346. The way the Supreme Court dealt with it is that, look, you people that are coming before us to complain are the same people that have been suspended. So you lack the local standing to even come before us and ventilate your grievances. On the point of preliminary objection, the court struck out their matter. So there are legal historians and lawyers who have regretted that the Supreme Court didn't utilize that opportunity to pronounce on the legality and constitutionality of appointing a sole administrator after dissolving democratic structures. So the point to note is that even as we speak, for all that have commented on the illegality and unconstitutionality of what the president has done on this occasion, allegedly, there is no authority, court authority, Supreme Court authority, that has, in those three instances that are cited, declared them illegal and unconstitutional. Now, going to Rivers State and what the administrator should do, the administrator is going to exercise the powers that will be prescribed in an emergency instrument, emergency power instrument, like a regulation by the National Assembly. It is the National Assembly that will prescribe such powers. And the sole administrator will not be expected to exercise any power that is not contained in that emergency power, resolution. It's an instrument that is usually issued to guide the sole administrator so that he will not act contrary to the intendment of those who are giving him appointment as a sole administrator. However, and perhaps in conclusion, and I've said this elsewhere, merely suspending political combatants from office will not extirpate conflict or political quarrel or put an end to it.
Crisis.
My expectation is that Mr. President should utilize the 6-month period or a period that is lesser than that, because under Section 305, if the situation improves, the National Assembly can also cut short the period of emergency. It's not sacrosanct that it must be 6 months. Just as the National Assembly, at the request of the President, has the power to extend the period for another 6 months, making it 12 months. Now, if the situation improves, or even if the situation does not improve, the President has an opportunity now that the sole administrator has been appointed, to bring the parties back to the negotiation table. The President did this before. Unfortunately, combatants were recalcitrant and they were still rolling up their sleeves and still fighting. Now that this deus ex machina has come, perhaps, reason and common sense will prevail. And in a matter of give and take, they will then come back together, coming from the same political party, and shake hands and then say, we are now ready to go back to serve the Rivers State people instead of serving themselves. I think that if that period is not utilized for confidence building and fence mending and rapprochement and bringing them together, 6 months thereafter, even upon the expiration of the state of emergency, they will go back and pick up the gauntlet and their guns and artillery and start hostilities all over again. And I don't think that that's good. That will have defeated the purpose of the declaration of the state of emergency.
All right, Barrister G.T. Ogunye, a legal practitioner, we must thank you very much for your own perspective on that declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State by Mr. President. We thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
All right, that was a deep conversation with Barrister G.T. Ogunye, a legal practitioner, on the declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State. We all know what has been happening in that state for a couple of months. And yesterday, Mr. President had to wield the big stick and, of course, to save the state from going into crisis. And now we have a sole administrator in place who's going to run the state for the next 6 months. And, of course, after the initial 6 months, probably there will be an assessment of the situation. And if there is any need for extension, probably there will be an extension, but that will subject to the approval of the National Assembly. That's the Pendulum tonight. We thank you very much for watching. I am Ajibola Ojeshola. We'll see you next time.